Good morning. It's the 28th now, it's Thursday, and I did promise to talk to you about estimates. It's a fairly long process. It ran over 7 to 8 days, or 7 days, and it's where you get to actually interrogate all of the various departments. Now, I was there on the very first one. I was there for the Speaker, and we talked about a whole range of things, and that all relates to the running of Parliament House, the building and the precinct itself, and the officers and all the things that the Speaker is responsible for. There are a few questions there, but it's the technology is probably the big thing, keeping up with that change of technology. And so that was fairly straightforward. And then we moved to Premier wearing her Reconstruction hat as the Minister for Reconstruction. So there was a fair bit of information there and questioning of that area, how things are running, and it was all fairly straightforward. Every now and again they tend to get a bit silly and a bit precious and sort of throw in a bit of spin. That's probably the best way to sum it up, a bit of spin. I was asking about the report coming down. The Commission of Inquiry is due in the 1st of August, so only a matter of days away now, and whether or not there was some advance notice of that, whether there was things that could be put in train that had come through the inquiry, and some of those things are starting to come to the fore. I know something I'd raised quite some time ago was about the advance warning in the river systems. The river monitoring systems, there are a number of them up and down the rivers and waterways of Queensland. They're supposed to provide advance warning, and clearly some of those are run by varying departments. Some are managed by BOM, the Bureau of Meteorology, some are by DERM, Department of Environment and Resource Management, and some are managed by local authorities, local governments. What we need is a system where they're integrated, where the information that they're monitoring and measuring is actually collated, and that community councils particularly have access to it for advance warning. Emergency services have advance warning to it. That was one of the key things certainly that came out of my visits to regional Queensland. That was the one thing that kept coming out time and time again, and so that was pretty important. And some of those things are coming. Premier decided for a moment or two to play silly beggar when she was pushing the broadband network that our party has question marks over and serious concerns about the rollout of NBN, the broadband network across the nation. Now, the problem that I see is that would not have helped, because it relies on poles and wires and all of that communication. So if you have a flood or a storm, those poles, that infrastructure is still knocked down. We are no further advanced by that. In part, yes, communications will help, but largely it's not being addressed. Mobile phones are now the big thing that we use across Queensland. You and I use mobile phones, we live on them, and that's where the information flow needs to be. There are black spots all over Moreton Bay. There are black spots. You don't have to go too far away from the southeast corner to have mobile phone reception drop out or sporadic. So they're the issues that we need to probably start focusing on if we're to get those advance warnings out and give people time to prepare, because that's obviously important. And then of course we followed on to the Treasurer Andrew Fraser. Now he talks the talk and carries on, and the one thing that sort of bugs me is these Laborites completely misrepresent things. Like all that kept coming out through the morning session between the Premier and the Treasurer, and of course then the Premier was further for her role as Premier, obviously, but through the estimates they kept saying that, oh, you'll not introduce GST, and the carbon tax is not the be-all and end-all, it's not going to destroy the world. Well, they're wrong. The difference between the GST was the GST replaced a suite of taxes. Some of them actually came down. Now, at that time I was in the oil industry, and I had been in the grocery sector. Most of those product lines actually carried a 22% sales tax. That reduced to 10%. They don't tell you that. The GST was an effective thing, but it was something that John Howard went to the people on. You actually voted on that, and that was the issue for that campaign. You and I don't get that same privilege with carbon tax, and it is a new tax. That's all it is, just a bloody great big new tax that will do nothing but decimate one of our biggest industries here in Queensland. So they start with that rubbish, oh, you lot introduced GST and that's no different. You know, it's just complete BS when they tell you so. You know, look, we've sort of hit the 5-minute mark. I will do another one, but you know, 5 minutes is a long time to sit and look at me. In case you're wondering, I'm just actually standing in my office. There behind me is the other area where the girls work, and I'm standing in my office. So there you go. Thought I'd sort of mix it up and show you around. And please continue to give me feedback. I was far too close, and I've had my head cut off the top of some of the shots, and you know, so that's kind of where we're at now. Look, have a fantastic day. Thank you very much for kind of tuning in, and I'll look forward to the next update. Thank you.